Andrea, me not, Miss Queen gone. Oh,
What does
Jesus.
that mean? We have a minute, Miss B. All right, so I'm going off now. I'm going to launch. Wait, are we launched already?
Have we? There are 5 persons there. Are they in waiting room or they are in?
Sound like they're here. Looks like they're here.
I see 5 people.
Looks like they're here.
Are we going to record it? Once you're ready to start recording.
Already been.
Hmm? There's a
Go ahead, John. You could unmute your mic. Let me.
Yes, John, we've seen your hand. Yes.
John, you could go ahead and unmute your mic if you need to.
Sorry about that. I just like
We could hardly hear you.
Can't hear.
It's pretty low.
Hear me?
It's pretty low. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just like you guys know that.
Nah, it's still low, John. Can't hear you.
Are they saying that they can't hear us?
I don't know. Could you type it in the Q&A? All right, good.
Get no response.
Right. All right. No problem. Thank you, John. No problem. Seen and noted. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Andre. Welcome. It's good to have you on again. And to be here with you.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Brenda. Thank you all for joining us for another week. We are happy that you have decided to be here with us another week, and we're certainly going to be going through a lot today, so we're going to get into it in the interest of time, but we just want to express that welcome to you. As per usual, you're able to use the question and answer segment to ask us any questions you'd like. There's also the chat option, so if you want to talk among yourselves, do so. But if you want to use the question and answer segment, you could submit questions anonymously. Once you select that option, then you'll be able to make anonymous questions if you want. If you don't want, it's fine. It's up to you. That's fine. This week, again, Miss Brenda Dawkins is back. Both of us this week. I am Andre Bailey. And we are going into, this is week 3 of 4 of our webinar series. And this week we're looking at handling conflict, but this is part of, for this session, we're looking at managing conflict. So earlier in week 1, we looked at establishing boundaries. In week 2, we covered effective communication. So this week, week 3, is the part 1 of managing high conflict between co-parents. So we're going to be talking about that today, and then we're going to be doing some more of that next week. So we're hoping that you're able to join us for both parts of this 2-part part. So we're able to go ahead in terms of handling conflict. And we do recognize that this is a sensitive issue for a lot of our co-parents and our parallel parents. And we thought it necessary for us to include this as part of the work. So we're going to get into it. Ms. B. You're on mute, Ms. B.
I join you, Andre, in welcoming everyone again. And as we continue to look at co-parenting and to help you to understand how to co-parent effectively for the benefit of the children, we are going to start by asking some questions. So first of all, we want to ask you to think about what are some conflicting situations that you find yourself in or you find in your co-parenting. You can feel free to type an answer in the chat box. What are some conflicting situations that you find in your co-parenting? Feel free to say something, type something if you want, or I think you have the right also to respond if you want to. Would we?
Well, if they want to talk,
Yes.
then we'll allow that permission to do so.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just feel free to type in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll share some of ours, yeah?
Yes, all right. Whilst you think about it, let us show some, yes, someone is saying, okay, thank you. Have you ever been in the situation where you used your child as a messenger? Okay, because you're not on good terms with the other parent, and so you use a child to tell your mom that I say I'm picking you up at X time, or tell your dad that I said I don't want you to be there with your other, with any other, when his girlfriend is there, you know, and so you use the child as a messenger. We've seen that as a common one. Also, another situation, your co-parent did not regard the pickup. Have you ever been in a situation where you have a pickup plan or a drop-off plan, and when you get to the home, the other co-parent isn't there, or when the exchange is to take place, they are not ready, or you yourself ignore it and say, well, you know what, they'll have to just wait on me. So these can result in conflict, and no matter what your good intentions are, they can be conflictual. Have you ever been in a situation where the other parent is not contributing to schooling or maintenance? This too can result in conflict between both parents. And as a result of that, we find that the children sometimes are used to do the messaging. The other co-parent might feel, okay, I'm not contributing because I gave last week, and what did you do with the money? And a lot of times the other parent will say, okay, you're using it on yourself and not on the child, and so you stop giving, and in the end it is the child who ends up suffering from the lack because the contribution is not being done. Okay.
We have one of our participants who would like to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. Go ahead.
Just go ahead and unmute the mic and you should be good to go.
Who is it?
Hello?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
Let me give me one.
A conflicting situation.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Conflicting situation that I've had before with the co-parents that that I have found is no regard for time or is willing to pick up or drop child in location, or the child's never ready. Those are, and regarding the aspect of, there was a particular instance where child was not living with the other co-parent for a period of time, but was not willing to assist in any sort. And I have used my child on one occasion for pass a message on to The instant words that I said, please let if your mom asks it, tell a teacher when I get to work and sort of kind of thing, not to avoid the confrontation or any sorts.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Andre.
No, I was just saying, those are exactly the things that we're talking about. And he mentioned respect for time. And these things have often caused conflictuous situations between co-parents. And we're happy that you have decided to share with us, much appreciated. And others, we encourage you to, if you want to share with us, we are going through the management as best as possible, how to handle this, so we could process it together. So if you want to share with us, you can also do so. Use a chat free, use a Q&A, and if you want to talk, raise your hand, and we'll allow you to hear what you're saying.
Because Andre, we want to acknowledge that you are the persons who are in the situation, and it's not like we are coming here to tell you what is happening. You know for yourself what you've been experiencing, and we want to let you understand that we understand that it's not easy, that these things are happening, and that's why we are doing this, so we can reap the positive benefit in the end. That's and right. If there's a final one, Andre? Is there another one?
Excessive contact. One of our participants says, excessive contact during residence with other parent.
Okay.
Yeah. As a challenge experience. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for sharing. So, yes. So, have you ever been in a situation where you have spoken badly about other co-parent to your child? This, again, is another situation, because sometimes we think when we talk to the child badly about the other co-parent, that the child is going to think that, okay, I am the good one, and the child will see the other co-parent as the bad, whether mother or father. And I always like to say to my co-parents that your children are not going to remain children all the days of their lives. And later on, we'll have some questions which will help to bring that out. But these things can cause conflict. And we might be asking, well, what is conflict? Why is this conflictual? And so any situation that is going to result in a continuous disagreement or argument where you're unable to solve the problem or to agree on a process moving forward, as defined by dictionary.com, it is something that is prolonged, it's continuous, it's a strife that is continuing and continuing, it's a constant battle between both of you, and you can never come to an agreement or a decision. We also want to highlight that not all the time conflict is bad. I know we look at it because in other situations, conflict can allow you to examine yourself and to say, why is this always happening? So whilst there are conflicts happening and we're not agreeing, it as a reasonable individual, it can allow us to step back into ourselves and say, why am I not always agreeing with my co-parent? What can I do differently? How can I eliminate some of these things that are causing this conflict in the family or amongst the co-parent?
Right.
So, yes, Andre, go ahead.
That's how we could manage it. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Having that conflictual situation and wanting a resolution out of it, because you understand that it becomes toxic. And this toxicity might filter over, well, not might, it will filter over into the relationship between you and the child, and even into your new relationship, should you decide to have one. So it becomes very important that you become aware and then take the necessary steps in order to manage that conflict, even if you are the only person trying. Even if the other parent, your co-parent, your partner parent, even if that partner parent is not making the effort to try, it becomes important that you know how to go ahead and try to manage that conflict.
And our old anthem, Andre, that we've been repeating from the very first session we have is that you cannot control the other parent. You can only control yourself and the things that you can handle. And it is always good for the children to have at least one stable parent. And if you are that stable parent, then be that stable parent, regardless of what might happen.
True. We can quickly look at what happens when there is conflict. And we see the conflict here in the middle and the relationship with all the things that surrounds it. There's a lot of anger because of conflict. There might be hatred because of conflict. Of course, conflict can result in war or evolve into war. Persons often retaliate during a conflict or situation, and there might be fear on the part of other persons. And I'm sure if we should ask any one of you here in this webinar today, what are some other resulting factors or resulting elements in conflict, then we could add a few more words to show what the rules in conflict are. So we do recognize that in conflict, these things are there, but we're going into today and next week, how do we go ahead and manage this so there is less retaliation, if any, so we mitigate against war, against hatred, against anger, against fear, and so on.
Okay, thank you. And here we have some stats to show. We know we have been telling you about communication and boundaries. And last week we talked about parents aiming to become cooperative parents, and rather than fiery foes. But we know that sometimes this is difficult. And here is a research that shows that approximately 25 to 35% of parents involved in child custody cases cannot cooperatively co-parent. Because let's face it, they were already maybe having conflict within the marital relationship or whatever relationship you were in with and that is what caused you to be dispersed, to be scattered and not parenting together again. So this is going to follow through unless you make a conscious effort to eliminate that high conflict situations. So when you are not able to cooperatively communicate with each other and you're constantly butting heads and being fiery and blaming and instigating and all these things, then you are considered to be in a high conflict situation. And just to tie it back with what we said earlier, conflict is not necessarily bad, but when these things are happening, you are in a high conflict situation. And so we want to help you to manage these situations as best as possible. So let's take a look at what high conflict co-parenting constitute, what it is and what it isn't.
So when we're looking at managing high conflict, it is child-centered. It always has to be child-centered. So while there is disagreement on the part of the mother or disagreement on the part of the father, and you both can't see eye to eye, you both can't agree, once it becomes child-centered, then it changes the dynamic from that relationship that you had before to understanding that the relationship that we have now is a child-centered one. What it is, again, it is emotional reasoning, emotional regulation, being able to look at yourself, being able to be self-aware, being able to parent from a place of control, not reacting. We spoke about communication and we talk about reacting to what we think the thing means as opposed to what someone says or what they said, the meaning that we ascribe to it. So it is being able to emotionally regulate yourself. If it is that you're going to be managing any form of conflict, you must have some emotional regulation. What it's not, on the other side, is pointing fingers. And pointing fingers also look at poor impulse control, which it is not. It is not using your impulse and the first thing that comes to your head is the first thing you say, because you're trying to hurt the other person or you're trying to make sure that this person doesn't win because you're in a war and the point of a war is to win the war. So it becomes that you're operating from a place of impulse and not from a place of control.
Okay, So it is not sweating the small stuff. You know, there are some things that are not worth arguing or fighting about, or discussing in a harsh manner. So let's say you want your child to be in bed by 7:30, but when the child is in the parents' home, they're going to bed by 8 o'clock. We can let that go and save the energy for the bigger things that will happen. But if it comes to things like a medical concern where the child might need medical care and it's not been offered, then you might want to be more, I was going to say aggressive, but aggressive not in the sense of being angry, but being assertive and state your cause with regards to that. So if it's not worth it, pick your battles. Why do I have to sweat about this? It's okay. This is manageable. We can do that for the sake of our children. It is establishing healthy boundaries. And we spoke about boundaries a lot during our first session, where you stick to what it is that you plan that you are going to do, as long as it's in the best interest of the child. I want to hasten here to say also that sometimes we might think something is in the best interest of the child, but is it really, or is it my own self-aggrandization, my own selfishness, why I'm doing it, and it's not in the interest? And this is where the self-reflection have to come sometimes. I have to ask myself, what I'm doing, is it really in the best interest of the child, or is it because I want to get at the other co-parent, right? And also effective communication. Now, communication is a broad topic that we've talked about, and last week we talked about using our iMessages. We talk about avoiding sending messages through children. We talk about how we communicate our needs and without being selfish and those things. And finally, we want to emphasize that managing high conflict co-parenting entails taking care of yourself. We always use the analogy at the Family Resource Center of you putting on that mask on yourself first before you put it on your child in the plane, as the direction that's given by the flight attendants. Because if you don't take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and get the support you need, and I want to pause here to commend those of you who are in this session, because that is a part of self-care. It is getting the information you need so that you can help your child and help the co-parenting situation better. So when we take care of ourselves, we are in a better position to take care of situations. We are in a more mentally stable to take care of our children, and the result will be positive in the end.
You know, one of the interesting ones here, Miss Brenda, that managing conflict is not, and that is focusing on retaliation or tit for tat. And we've seen it a lot of times with our co-parents and our parallel parents, where because one person did something, the other parent feels they have to do it as well. To get even, because you did it this time, so I'm going to do it that time, and it becomes retaliation, and it becomes tit for tat. It becomes sweating the small stuff. So
that's right.
If you're trying to manage conflict, if you're trying to not have conflictual situation, then it cannot be retaliation as the result, or retaliation as the go-to. It must be that you're operating from a place of emotional regulation, emotional control.
Great point, Andre. Thank you for that. So as we look at what it is, it's also good to know what it is not, because that will guide our process as well. It is not sticking to negative intimacy, you know, negative relationship, anything that is going to cause you to be thinking negative thoughts. It's not pointing your fingers or becoming impulsive. It is not putting the child in the middle, as we mentioned at the beginning. And it is not conveniently ignoring the family commitment. So if you have a court order and you're expected to contribute to the parenting time as well as the finances, then you have a role to play. It is not, we mentioned retaliation. It is also not parentification. And when we talk about parentification, what we are actually referring to is where the child is being used to do the parental role. We want our children to be children. So we should not be confiding in the children with some information and trying to get to their emotions so that they feel sorry for us. We are looking to them for emotional support. Oh, if daddy didn't do this, then mom would not have to be seeking counseling. And then the child feels, oh mom, everything is going to be all right. And so the child is taking on that adult role, assuming responsibility for. If that is happening to you and you're in a situation, seek counseling. Get what we refer to in one homes as find a 3 a.m. friend. When we refer to a 3 a.m. friend, we're talking about some people or someone who you can confide in and talk to when you're feeling that way. But we should never put our children in the middle. We want them to be happy boys and girls who are growing up and taking their place in society. So don't use them as your confidant. Don't tell them that, okay, I'm going to tell you this, and because you're growing. As time goes on, they will get into their role of support as much as they need to. But we don't want to be parentifying our children. Okay.
All right, so there's a video we have for you this week, guys. We're going to be sharing a video with you. It's a very powerful video, and we hope that you will enjoy it. Please just listen to it, and watch what he's saying.
As well as watch it, yes.
It brings out a very powerful point.
With the help of some wonderfully creative friends, we've come up with a dramatic vignette that's set to music, and I think this really helps us understand what a child is experiencing when their parents are struggling and conflicted. The title is The Heart of a Child.
All right. So we want to hear from you. We'll take a few responses. Those who saw it well and would like to share, you could unmute your mic or raise your hand or comment in the chat. We're seeing comments coming in.
And someone is saying very powerful message. What part, can we break it down a little bit more? Not necessarily the same person, but if anyone would like to say what makes the message so powerful. Let's see. There's someone who is talking, but we're not hearing you clearly.
It's I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's by the drama effects of the showing, having the kid always in the middle and having both parents bounce back and forth, and that child is in the middle. It resonates that the kid is feeling everything, and instead of helping the child to feel some sort of normalcy, you make that child more conflicted and then become rebellious to both parents or to one parent or to the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I saw that too. Very good analysis.
Yep. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Apologies, I may have some background noise here in the back here, but I also noticed very strongly how the parents conflicting with each other basically completely disregarded the child entirely, and then the effect of that conflict degrading the child and almost diminishing the child down and having a very strong negative effect on the child. And for me personally, I've seen that with my youngest daughter in particular, that I think that seeing that imagery has kind of helped me to understand how that could have affected her in that way. I'm sort of unpicking that on the tail end of that now. So, yeah.
Yes, very good.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing.
What I want to ask is, Brenda, how do any of you feel about the trusting nature of the child within that relationship, in the middle between the mom and the dad, the trusting relationship that she had?
And you're referring to the, go ahead.
I feel that trusting relationship will be broken, but then it also depends. The child becomes confused, but it's broken, but then will then turn to cling to one parent that seems to be either hurt the most or being pushed back the most on, I guess I could say. But I can definitely tell you the trust would be broken.
That's so true, and that we don't want that to be happening for the children, because then if trust is broken on both sides, especially you're saying one side, but let's say I can't trust mom, which was what we saw. I gave my heart to mom and she tore it apart. I gave it to dad and he tore it apart. And then in the ensuing battle and war, they break it apart. Now what's going to happen here is that you could find, as the child grows, they begin to go somewhere else and seek other support and other persons who might be trusting. And then this can be very devastating for them as they grow. And we think, especially sometimes as teenagers, and this was a young lady we saw there, if I can't trust mom and I can't trust dad, then I'm going to fight someone who might appear to be trustworthy, and that could be hurtful for the person. So parents have to be that support, that trusted element for our children as they go through this.
And the most important point, Ms. Brenda, as we move on, is to acknowledge that while it might have been ruptured, the trust, it is repairable with your children.
Yes.
It is repairable with your children. Yeah?
Great point. And I hope that resonates, because it is, damage is done, but you can repair it. It's like your car, you meet in an accident, it wasn't a write-off, I can go and I can get it repaired and it looks like brand new. So we want to make sure that we support our children in that regard. Great.
So we want to go into some solutions now. We've defined conflict. We have spoken a little bit about that. We have seen the video and we have had that analysis. We want to get into some possible solutions. How can we go about managing this high conflict?
Okay, so we've highlighted some at the beginning in terms of some of the things that we see when these are happening. These could be considered as red flags in high conflict situation. So in managing conflict, we want to look at how we refer to the other co-parent. What names are we calling the other co-parent? You know, sometimes we're talking with the children, oh, when you go, tell your mother, or ask your father, or some people will put some adjectives in front of those father, mother words to tell the child to do. How you're referring to your parent as is very, very important in terms of how you approach co-parenting, because that is going to give you that negative mindset, which is going to prevent you from having a healthy co-parenting situation. Also, if you're co-parenting, and let's say the child is living with you, but the other parent is playing a role in the relationship, you're not a single parent. There are a lot of parents, especially, I know they will be like, because the child lives with me, they're like, oh, I'm a single parent now. As long as the other parent is playing a role, regardless of how minuscule and small it is, they are still a part of the child's life. So for your child to hear you say you're a single parent, the child could be thinking, so wait, what are you saying? My dad doesn't exist? My mom doesn't exist? So we just have to be careful of some of the words we use and be mindful, not careful, but be mindful of some of the words that we use. If you're seeing conflict, if your spouse is trying to turn the child against you, this can boomerang. This can come back to haunt you. As I said earlier, that children do not stay children all the days of their lives. They grow, they make decisions, and you want to make sure that you were there for your child in a positive way. So, like mentioned before, don't tell the child things about the other parent because you want the child to gravitate towards you more than the other. Using your child to convey messages, we highlighted that one earlier. The blame game, playing the blame game. So, it was your dad's fault because he went out and had a relationship. A child doesn't need to be fed all that information. Oh, it's your mom's fault because she refused to contribute her part towards your schooling. So that's why the teacher is giving you a letter. That's why you don't have a school bag. That is why the books are not ready. So we don't want to, that is conversation that we're going to have with the co-parent. And if we are unable to co-parent, then we mentioned a few weeks back about parallel parenting. If we are not able to co-parent in this way, we are talking about the child's, working for the child's benefit, then maybe this is something that we might want to write out how we are going to handle this situation. What is going to happen here? Who is going to do what? And play it by the books. If that is the case, and in that case, you'll be doing what is called parallel parenting because you cannot work amicably together, but you're still working for the benefit of the child. You've been cut off from your child or children entirely. This can be conflicting and cause conflict as well. It's a case in point. We've had parents who are making monetary contribution to their children, and they'll tell you that, oh, the other parent don't want me to see the child. Unless there are extenuating circumstances where there's a court order against you because they felt that the child would be in danger. But we should never prevent the other parent from seeing the child, or the child from seeing the other parent, because the child is half you, half the other parent. And we want them to feel that love between both. So don't never try to separate them. If these things are not happening, then we are in a good place. And if they were happening, then we might want to rethink how we go about not doing these things so we can have a healthier parenting relationship. Andrea, you want to speak to how we do that through changing our thoughts and thought process?
On the right here, guys, we have what is called the cognitive behavior theory, CBT for short, cognitive behavior theory. And what it says, simply as you see the triangular shape of the items here, how we think will influence our feelings, and that will influence our behavior. So how we process a situation, how we think of our co-parent, of our partner parent, the thoughts that we have in our head about them will influence how we feel about them, and will in turn influence how we behave towards them. And the same is true for any point of the triangle, because it's really a cycle. So how you behave towards something, or your co-parent, let's use those examples, will influence your thoughts towards them. It will influence your thinking towards them. So what CBT says, if we adjust our mindset, if we adjust the way we think about our co-parents, and we have examples coming up in this presentation to really spell this out for you. If you adjust how your mind frame is towards your co-parent, then you would, if you think positively, if you think cooperatively, if you operate in a way where you're giving the co-parent the benefit of the doubt, for example, then your feelings towards them will be different, will be more positive. And once you have a more positive feeling inside, then the resultant behavior will be one that is more positive towards actions. And then that also helps when we're looking at staying in the best interest of our children. So let's look quickly at an example so we could spell this out a little bit if the slide would change. All right, good. Let's a situation here where John is 22 minutes late. Yeah, let's call the mother Mary. So John is 22 minutes late for the exchange. He's supposed to be dropping off the child. We see John all the way on the end. Yeah. Mary begins to say, she's thinking this at part B, John does not care about my parenting time and can't be relied on. So that's the hard thought that immediately goes in her head, that John is not dependable. We cannot rely on John. She starts feeling angry because she's thinking that this man is always late. No, he's 22 minutes late. He's messing up my plans. She is now feeling very angry. So Mary goes ahead and she sends John a lengthy email, because she pops out her phone and she sends a long email criticizing John's decision making, telling him that he's irresponsible and that he has no regard for time. He cannot stick to what the plan and what the arrangement is, because her initial thought once she recognized that he was late, her mind automatically went to that he's unreliable. And this might be coming from the relationship that they had before. And that's the truth. This might be coming from the relationship in the past. So she carries over these feelings in her current, how she conceptualizes John. Let's look at a second scenario. Same Mary, same thing is happening. John is also, again, 22 minutes late. So Mary is feeling angry. John does not care, can't be relied on. Of course, she's angry at this because it's the same
So
situation.
thinking, okay, you're freezing there, Andre.
Oh,
so,
it's freezing.
yeah.
Sorry, technology.
All right.
So John doesn't care about my parenting time. This is what she's saying. He cannot be relied on. Yeah, that was the initial thought. What if Mary pauses for a second to say, you know what, I don't know if this is true. Let me, why is John late again? Something might be happening. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, changing her thought process, changing how she thinks about the situation. So maybe our child is sick. Maybe the baby is sick. Maybe something happened to the child and he's sick. Maybe
he's in an accident.
Maybe something, just something. Yeah. So she starts thinking now. She gets curious. Even though she might have had that initial hard thought of feeling angry because again he's late, and of course that's frustrating. I'm not trying to downplay somebody being perpetually late. If somebody is late all the time, it is frustrating and it will get you mad. But instead of just having that hard thought in her head that John is a late comer all the time and he cannot be fixed and he has no regard for her time, she instead picks up her phone and instead of sending that lengthy email, she calls John. John answers the phone in a flurry. John is out of it. And John says, "Oh, Mary, I'm so sorry. I've been dealing with the police. I've been trying to call the insurance company. I was rear-ended. So I was coming to meet you and a drunk driver hit me in the back. Billy is fine. That's the name of the child. Billy is good. Don't worry about Billy. He's fine. I'm trying to wrap up things with the police real quick and I'll be there as soon as I can. But if you can, could you come and pick up Billy? Or if you can't, then I'll get there as best as I can, as fast as I can." This we see, parents, that the situation that caused John to be late is completely different from what Mary thought. And right now she might be feeling so bad. Concern for her child, might not be so much concern for John, but she's definitely concerned for her child. And there we have John walking across the length and breadth, trying to get to her because his car is in a wreck and he knows that he has his commitment and he's walking over now to try as best as possible to meet with her. The point that we're making is that we change our mindset, we change how we think about something, and this will influence how we feel about it, and it will influence how we behave towards it. So within our co-parenting relationship, when something is happening and it might not be going the way we want it to, or things might be, discombobulated, it's important for us to step back for a second, for us to think twice, and change our mindset, change the thoughts that we have in order to make ourselves feel better. Take a deep breath, count to 10, and cool down, calm down, and operate always from a place of control, and that will change our behavior.
Yes, so change your thought, changes your feelings, and then it eventually changes the behavior.
Good. We used this last week and we just wanted to reintroduce it to you this week. So it could be back at the top of your brain that we think about things before we speak. So before we say anything, find out if it's true, or think about whether or not it's true, whether or not it's helpful. What am I about to say? What I'm about to send in this message? What I'm about to send in this voice note? Is it helpful? Will it inspire? Will it encourage? Is it inspiring or not? Then if it's not, leave it alone. Is it necessary? Do I need to share this information? Is this information privileged? Is this information unhelpful? Is it personal? Do I need to share it? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if we are trying to manage conflict, the best place to operate from is a place of kindness. So if you are going to operate from a place of bitterness or a place of hurt or of anger, then conflict cannot be resolved like that. Operating from a place of kindness will change the formula and will change the game.
You're so right, Andre, because there's a saying which goes, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Right. So if we apply that principle, because if you were in your workplace, you are not going to just blurt out anything that comes to your mind to your supervisor or your colleagues, because you might end up not having a job. So if we tend to look at parenting in that regard and apply the same principles, just think, what are the repercussions? What are the long-term effects? And usually the long-term effects are impacting the children involved.
All right, so real quick, we're going to be looking at this scenario where the child talks to his father about what his mother said. So
the child comes in and said, Mom says you don't love us anymore. That's why you got another woman and left us for another family. Sounds familiar?
No, what are the thoughts? If any of the fathers who are here with, I mean, even the mothers, anybody would want to share, we'll take a minute. If this is it, that what your child says to you, mom says you don't love us anymore, that is why you left, that's why you got another woman, that is why you left our family. What would be the initial thought coming to you? You could type your answer real quick in the chat, or if you want to speak, you could unmute the mic. We're also seeing a question here. It says that, I'll read it aloud for all of us while you consider your thoughts. What if the co-parent makes unilateral decisions that should be made together? And Brenda and I were going to be addressing that. So we see your question and we're going to be answering.
I saw it and made note of it. Yeah.
What if the co-parent makes unilateral decisions that should be made together? So any thoughts coming to you if this was said to you by your child? No, well, I mean.
One sec. Am I there?
Yes, you're here.
Go ahead.
What if you get from your child that mom says you don't love us anymore, and mom says that you stole this. I don't want to go into too much detail. And mom says this is the reason why he hasn't given you $1 and etc. You can imagine the rest.
Right. So the question is, what is the thought? What is the initial thought? That being said to you, hypothetically or not, what was the initial thought, or what would be the initial thought?
In my head?
Yeah, in your head.
My initial thought, being all candid and honest, that this woman has lost a screw. But I towards my child, I was like, why is she saying these type of things to him? And then my kid is so frantic and panicking. Dad, is this true? Dad, is this true? So I'm like, how do I answer him? I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna answer that. So I ignored it, and then he bombarded my phone with more messages. So that's the kind of thing. So,
and which is the same thing we spoke about, putting the children in the middle, and that's the same scenario here that we're dealing with. So let us look at one of the recommendations for something like this as we press on.
Andrea, before we go into that as well, just to respond a little bit to what was said, next week we'll be analyzing some of those things a lot more in terms of what you would say. But what we want to help you to understand is that not because it is said and you're frustrated or you're angry should you ignore it, because earlier we talked about trust and we want the children to be able to come to us. So despite that, don't ignore the fact that it is what was said, but we have to try to find a way to respond to it. And it's okay to say to the child, you know what, I've never been asked this question before, son or daughter. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. Because sometimes we answer out of a, and I think that is where we would come in with our ways to control. If you continue there, maybe it will come out there.
I never thought about answering that, but thank you very much. I never thought about answering a question like that, but thank you.
All right. No problem, sir. Thank you for sharing, though. I appreciate that. And
yes.
Other persons who are here, if you want to process stuff and share with us, we appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. So we're looking here at how to operate from a place of control. And as you see in red, the acronym is PAUSE. Yeah. Asking us to prioritize positive thinking about our co-parenting relationship. And we just spoke about the CBT triangle, how our thoughts influence our feelings and our behavior. So if we are prioritizing positive thoughts, then we know our feelings will be better and we know our actions will also be better. We want to be avoiding the blame game, and Ms. Brenda spoke about that. We want to use vocabulary that redefines the co-parenting as teamwork. And we spoke about that earlier as well, to say that the language that is used shows that you are parenting with the child together. One of the things I'll say to parents is that don't use the expression X to say, this is my ex, or she's my ex, or he's my ex.
Yeah.
He or she is your nothing. You have no relationship with this person. The only thing that you have in common at this point is that you share a child or children. So it's not your ex. It's the mother of your child, or the father of your child. Or if for instance the child is Billy, it's Billy's dad, or Billy's mom, or Billy's mother, or Billy's father. So it's not your ex. So when we use language like that, it also changes how we view it. It might not be overt in terms of how it's presented, but subtly. Just think about ex, she's my ex. It really gives a different ring, it gives a different tone, right? But if you're co-parenting, it sounds like a more teamwork. You're working together for the benefit of the child. So we want to solve problems in a child-centered way. The situation of a child asking a question based on what one parent said to the other about the other parent is not being child-centered, because the child is well centered in the sense that he's being put in the middle into an adult conversation. And of course, children sometimes ask, why did daddy leave? Or why did mommy leave? But it becomes important for the parents to answer the question in a way where the children gets an answer, but it's age appropriate for the age and stage of the child, and it is not putting them in a conflicted situation with the parent where one child can go above, with one child loving one parent more than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And when we want to express ourselves using the I messages, putting ourselves first and not playing the blame game. So the important thing is that we pause. The acronym is there for you to recognize that in everything, when a reaction is expected or trying to be solicited, what is important is that we stop for a second and pause. And once we do that, then we're able to formulate a better response to help ourselves, to help our children, and even to help our co-parenting. So let's look at the same situation where the mother said something to the child that the father left because there was another woman and he wanted to find another family. Father goes. That must have been upsetting to hear. Yeah, so he's acknowledging the child, acknowledging the feelings of the child, and he's empathizing. That must have been upsetting to hear. I don't know why your mom said that. She and I see things differently, but I absolutely love you. And this is important for the child to know, that even though if you're not in the home, that you still love them very much. Yeah, I absolutely love you. And though I'm not with your mom anymore, I will always be here for you. So you're answering him, you're reassuring him, but you are not providing a response to the adult situation that's going on. Yeah, because we don't want to get our children in the middle of this adult conflict. You're acknowledging the question. That's why Miss Brenda spoke about not ignoring. There's a standing question on the floor. So you're acknowledging the question, you're answering it, but you're providing a response that reassures the child without him or her feeling as though one parent is wrong more than the other. And then at a later time, you can speak to the co-parent about that as best as possible. All right. So just pause, stop, pause, rethink, reframe, then you could move on. We spoke about pausing for that second and then dealing with the adult situation at a later time. And this might be something that works with a parenting plan. This might be something that, this is something that we encourage at the Family Resource Center for parents to have a parenting plan, especially when you're co-parenting. A parenting plan is a helpful way for parents to make decisions together and ultimately have a clear point of reference. Mm-hmm. And this again starts to answer the question that was asked earlier. What happens when a parent makes a unilateral decision when this should be made together? Was a parenting plan in place? And if not, then it would be good to have one in place. If one was in place, but it's not being subscribed to, or the other parent is not upholding the plan, that's a different situation now, because you had a plan in place. What we're promoting from the Family Resource Center is that parents who are working together for the best interest of their children have a plan in place. Much like every other thing in our lives, we put plans together. So here is just one example, and we're going to be sharing this with you. The link for this, it was also shared last week, where you could go, you could
Google.
Configure it for your own family. Based on your family reality, based on your family need, you can configure your parenting plan. It doesn't have to be something formal. It could be a regular folder sheet, a regular notepad, that's fine. We're talking about the parenting schedule, talking about holidays and special dates, talking about travel, other important decisions. So when this family plan is in place, when there's this meeting between the co-parents, then all these decisions are made at this point. And then both parents would have been involved in the decision making. So when the thing happens, the decision has already been taken. Similar, next week we're going to be talking about operating co-parenting like a business, because that's what it is. You have equal investment in this child, a 50-50 relationship. So next week we're going to be talking about handling conflict from that perspective, where it is treated much as though we do it in a work setting, formal business environment. So a parenting plan is one way to help to mitigate against persons making unilateral decisions. There's a plan in place, and we try to follow this plan as best as possible. Of course,
Andre,
yes, ma'am.
If I might just inject a little, just to say that in the case where the parents are not amicable enough to sit down and do it together, they could seek the mediator, or if you have a facilitator working with at the Family Resource Center, you could sit with them and work it together.
Which is a service matter. Thank you, Ms. B. The question is, right, okay. The question is, what happens if this it's in place, but it's not followed through?
I would say it's not, it is something that's in progress. So you just have to keep trying and keep going at it. It's not going to happen overnight. Co-parenting is going to take a process, and especially if either parent or both parents are at a point where they're still hurt after the dissolution of the relationship, then you could have conflict instituting this. But it is worth trying. It's worth looking at and working with.
This is another example of a parenting plan.
Yes, this is a parenting plan when it's done. So what would go into the schedule, some things you could put in the schedule and what they look like. So as we say, this will be posted on the page as well for you to view and to model your parenting plan off.
We will send the link in the chat, so you could always click and download it if you need it.
Andre, just to say, I don't know if you had seen, we had asked for their indulgence and in giving us a few more minutes, so we don't want to go over the time too much.
Okay.
Okay. And most people said yes, so well, thank you.
There's one person says that they believe that it can work if both parents are mature enough to handle it, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's where it is, yeah.
And sometimes we have a situation where one co-parent is not as mature as the other, and that again causes conflict. But like Ms. Brenda said, it's a work in progress, and it's development over time. The hope is that the parent gets on board with the actions that you are taking. You being the parent who is aware, you being the parent who is exposed, you being the parent who is trained, exposing that parent, that co-parent, to get them on board to be on the same page.
Yeah, so these are just some questions just to have you thinking as you leave, leave us later. What has been your responsibility in the conflict and what do you need to do to change it right now? You don't have to respond, but it's just for thinking about it. Most importantly, are you willing to begin to make that change regardless of the other parent's behavior and position? So just food for thought and questions for thinking about. Okay, Andre, we probably can skip this slide because it's repeating most, yes. So if it's a little cut off, so it needs to shift over a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Oops, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Continue.
So this slide is just showing the impact that this can have on children. So we are saying that you are role models for your children. And regardless of what happens, don't the other co-parent bad behavior control your response. Your children are paying attention. They are going to grow up to become the adults we always say of tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we are not creating situations where they grow up to perpetuate the same kind of behavior. We want to resist the urge to become defensive or start saying mean-spirited things about the other parent. In one of the responses, someone asked a question, in one of the Q&A, a question, and I responded by saying that we want to teach our children, even if they say mom and dad saying things, you want to say to the child, well, this is not the way we handle situation. This is not the way to treat people. And even in your classroom or wherever, we do not want to treat others like this. So so you try to teach them for the future. Stay calm and focused on having a productive conversation instead of bad mouthing the other parent. And sorry, go ahead to the next one, Andre.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. Right? If both parents give in to bad mouthing back and forth, then the children will have to, we said that earlier on, look elsewhere for healthy models of responding to negativity. And healthy can mean a lot of things. So we want to make sure that we are there for our children. We need to protect them from the toxicity of conflict and within the co-parenting relation. And even one parent can reduce this conflict and be positive in helping the children.
And an important point that we'll add, and we've been adding it, is that you cannot control the other person.
Mm-hmm.
You can only control yourself, your actions and your behavior.
Yes.
So if the person does something to trigger you, it's your responsibility to manage your door. It's your responsibility to manage yourself. Pause, take a deep breath if you have to. Count to 10 if you have to. Drink some water if you have to. And stick to your boundaries if you have to. And say, I'm not going to deal with this in this way. Let's deal with this another time when you're in a different, when we are in a different place. Stick to your boundaries. And people learn, conditioning works. So when you have a co-parent who is not cooperating, and that's a question I've been asked, and that's a question, and it's a suggestion too, that sometimes one parent or another is not cooperating, then you trying to condition that person and sticking to your guns, being consistent about it, just like how you train your child and just like how you grow your child, is the same thing can you use in that co-parenting relationship, because what you're aiming for at all times is the best interest of the child. So I'm not so much concerned, I'm not so much care about your emotional feelings where you are trying to use emotion to fuddle the waters. We are staying focused for the interests of our children.
Okay.
We have a video we'll show it to you next week. We'll add it to next
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
To the front. Well, as a wrap up, we want to leave you with this picture and this African proverb. It's a very powerful African proverb, and you see here it's the graphic for it. It says, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers.
Yeah.
When two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. So let that sink in for a second. And remember the vignette that we saw earlier with the parents. And put yourself in the situation as well. When two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. Parents, we want to thank you for being with us this evening. We want to thank you for spending the extra time with us.
Yes,
I mean, we recognize that it's important to hear from you, which is why we kind of included the sharing aspect this week, and we appreciate you coming in and sharing with us. And we want to do something similar next week where you can process and ask your questions. Like Ms. Brenda said, at the Family Resource Center, we offer one-on-one sessions. So if it is that you want to speak about something or process something, or even to get some clarity on what we shared today, then contact us at the Family Resource Center, and one of the resource officers, one of the facilitators will be assigned to work with you. Ms. B.
I just join in thanking you, the panel, thanking the participants again, Andre, and to say elephants are smart as well, and that they can sense when another elephant needs help, and they can know how to work together to help their baby elephant to develop.
Okay, good. So you're extending the African proverb. That's fine. That's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, parents, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next week. We're up. If you want to hang on for a second, I'll post the link for you.
And the poll.
Oh, there's a poll too.
Okay, so we're just going to ask you to answer those few questions for us as they help us in developing further workshops, presentations, and help us to understand. So if you will just go ahead and answer the polls, please.
I'm finding the link for you, which I'll share for you, okay?
Okay.
That's
it.
That's the link to the parenting plan checklist. So if you want, just click on that, and it will take you to that place.
Yeah, Andre, someone is asking about the previous sessions. Yes, they are posted on our Family Resource Center Facebook page.
Our website. And the
our website, rather. They're uploaded there, and this one will be as well. So you can always access it.
Go to the resources tab, and then go down to parenting resources, and you will see webinars, and under webinars, you will see the section that speaks to parenting through separation and divorce. All the webinars will be posted there. So it is frc.gov.ky. That's our website, frc.gov.ky. Resources, parenting resources, webinars, and you will see it there. All right. So thank you for joining us. As soon as you're done with the poll, you could go. We'll see you next week. And we do appreciate you taking the time to be here with us this evening.